Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to talk about the topic of delaying the action that you're taking on your goals with learning and planning and preparation. This was actually a question that was asked on one of the lives. I do a live Q&A every Wednesday a couple of weeks ago, and I thought it would be a great topic to make a full video about because I know that I have been there. Have you ever been there where you have a goal that you want to work on and you find yourself spending so much time creating the perfect plan, doing all the research and getting all the steps right and never actually taking action on it? I know I've been there, and so I wanted to create a video with the 5 things that I do or consider when I get in this space, when I feel like I am stuck in the learning, planning phase, is how the person who asked the question described it. When I get in that space and I don't actually take action on my goals. And most of the time, we're doing this for one of 2 reasons. And either reason, the tips are gonna help you, but it's helpful to know why you are typically getting stuck in this space. The first one, which might apply to some of you, it's not my reason, but it might apply to some of you, is that you are a questioner. If you've never heard of Gretchen Rubin's 4 tendencies, she talks about the 4 different types of people and the way that we are motivated by things. And what a questioner is motivated by is information. And so they can get stuck trying to get all of the information to make sure they have the perfect 100% correct set of steps or information before they get started on anything, before they make a decision, before they take any kind of action. If you find this to be you, I hope that this video is helpful in getting you unstuck from needing to know all of the information. And now, don't get me wrong, you're never going to just take action without information. You're always gonna need to gather some information. We all do need to gather some information. But there are definitely ways for you to push through and not get stuck in that information gathering stage. The other big reason that we get stuck in this phase, and this is what I am guilty of, is procrastinating. We use the learning and the planning. We love to plan. We love all of our stickers and sticky notes and pens and paper, and we love using the planning phase as a way to procrastinate taking action. And I actually did a whole video on procrastination, and I talked about this as one of the things that holds us back from achieving our goals and all the reasons why you might be procrastinating. I also recommend you checking that video out if you find that this is something that you struggle with. But in this video, I'm gonna talk about 5 specific ways to break through that learning planning phase and get started with your goals. The first one may be the most obvious, and you're like, I can't believe you're including it, but sometimes we forget the most obvious option, and that is to give yourself a limit. And this could be any kind of limit. It could be a time limit. So depending on what the goal is or what the action that you need to get started on, you could say, I'm gonna give myself an hour. And when I'm done with that hour of researching and planning, then it's time to take action. It could be a date limit, right? I'm gonna give myself until this date to plan and get it ready, and then it's time to take action. I do this a lot at the turn of the quarter. Now there's a natural date, right? But I will start planning a little bit earlier because I'm excited. I'm excited to plan the new quarter and the new month and all the things, but I will give myself a limit and say, okay, once the new quarter, once we turn the day, and it is April 1st or July 1st or whatever quarter it is, you take action and you're done. What the plan is, the plan is. This could be a limit on the number of things that you need to know, right? Maybe you say, I need to know how to do this, this, and this. And once I know how to do that, then it's time to start taking action, right? A good example of this, I'm gonna give you an example that I find a goal that a lot of you have, and I had at one point, and then a goal recently in my own life. So a lot of you have come to me in the past talking about wanting to start a YouTube channel. Plug, I have a whole playlist of YouTube videos related to starting a YouTube channel if you wanna check those out. You could research all day and night for a very long time on the best practices when it comes to starting a YouTube channel. And there's a lot of different information and there's a lot of different experts out there. But what do you really need to know to start a YouTube channel? You need to know how to film and edit and upload a video. Once you know those things, you can have a YouTube channel, right? That's all you need to know. So that could be the limit. Once I know how to film, edit, and upload a video, then I'm starting my channel. Once you've started your channel, you can go back and learn those best practices, right? You can incorporate learning along the way. But until you start taking action, you're gonna keep procrastinating because there is an endless amount of information about a topic like that. I gave myself this limit when we did the community move from Patreon to Teachable. I could have sat and researched about Teachable all day. And obviously I did a lot of research to pick Teachable as the platform, but even once I chose the platform, and we'll talk in a little bit about priorities and making those kinds of decisions. But for this example, once I had chosen Teachable as my platform, there were a lot of things that I didn't know how to do and teachable. But I told myself, you need to know how to do this, this, and this. And once you know how to do those things, it's live and you're launching to the world. Now, I also had a date limit on this particular goal, but I didn't spend time researching and learning all the ins and outs of Teachable because I knew I would learn them along the way. And I very much appreciate our community members for being like on this learning journey with me, because there are a lot of little things about Teachable that I have learned like as we are doing it. And some of them I may have been able to learn in a research phase. If I'd spent more time researching and learning, I may have been able to learn them, but some of them, I don't think so. I think I wouldn't have learned those anyways until I started taking action. And so good thing I didn't waste time trying to research. Action is going to be the best way to learn. That's going to be the entire like conclusion of this video, is action is going to be the best way to learn. But again, from a practical standpoint, what are the specific things that you need to know, and set yourself a limit to that way. Number 2 is to remember that you will never know every step. You could research forever and never actually know every single step. Even goals that people have been doing for years and years, and like there are lots of resources out there for, a step will come up that is specific to you and your life that you didn't think about, right? Like even goals like planning a wedding, right? There's lots of research out there. There's lots of planners and spreadsheets and things that I can look at or could have looked at when I was planning my wedding. But I will tell you, there are things specific to my life and mine and my husband's wedding that came up that I would have never been able to figure out by looking at all that information. And by knowing that I will never know every step keeps me from going down the rabbit hole of trying to get all the information, because some of those things I'm just gonna learn along the way. The other piece about not knowing every step is you're not going to know how the plan is going to change until you start executing on it. How many times have you made this beautiful, perfect plan, and then you started working on it, you've gotten out of that planning phase and you started taking action, and then the plan changed, right? Because that happens. I've said this before, but the further out that you go, the further along the timeline, the further along the plan, the more likely it is to change. So instead of spending a bunch of time planning for the long term and making this super long plan when it's likely to change the further along you get, plan the short term. Pick the current steps, pick the short term steps and get started and take action, and then do another cycle of learning action, learning action. Number 3 is to know your priorities. A lot of times when we start in this planning, learning phase of a goal, we don't know what's important to us related to that goal. And so we spend what we think is like learning, planning time on figuring out those priorities. And if we don't get clear on those at the beginning, we could spend time researching and learning things that aren't even applicable to us. An example I'm gonna give here might feel like a silly goal, but it was a goal for me, and that was to book all of the hotels for our honeymoon. We went to Thailand for our honeymoon. We stayed in 5 different cities. Well, we stayed in 4 different cities, but we stayed in one twice. I was booking 5 hotels. And there are hundreds of hotels in Thailand, in most of these cities. And I could have gone through every single one of them. And sometimes I wanna be that person. Like I am that person when I go online shopping that like wants to go through every single item to make sure I'm like making sure I'm not paying for shipping and not getting everything that I want from that website. But I knew that I did not have the time or capacity to look at every single hotel in these cities in Thailand. So what I did first, step 1, was to pick my priorities. What are the priorities for the hotels that I'm looking at? And not too many of them, right? So the priorities for us were location. We like to walk, and we live in a city. We like to be able to easily go to places. So we wanted to be in like the city center of the cities we were in, except when we went to the island. But on the other cities, we wanted to be within walking distance of things, within a certain budget. It had a single bed. That wasn't always the case. There were some hotels that only had double beds, like 2 beds. And I feel like there was one more, and now my brain can't remember what it is. But I picked my priorities. Oh, I think it was a certain a rating or higher. So I went to hotels.com, right? And I put all of my filters on, and then I looked at the first 2 pages, and that's it. And then of those first 2 pages, I picked my top 3, just kind of based on like initial scanning, looking at photos, like initial kind of like a quick scan. Then I took those 3 and then I read details. I read reviews, I looked at other websites, and I like really dug in, and then I picked one. And so who's to say there was a better hotel for us out there? It's possible, it's very possible. But that process made it so that I didn't spend a lot of time on something and still got what I needed or wanted out of it. So again, knowing your priorities, what is important to you about that goal or that plan or that process before you go into the learning, research, planning phase is going to be key. Number 4 is to maximize your learning time. What I mean by this is make sure that you're gathering information, first off, in the best way that you like to gather it, right? Now, sometimes it's not always an option. I like to consume video, right? I like to create video. I like to consume video and audio. I don't like to read. And that is kind of hard sometimes with travel. There are not as many video, like there are travel vlogs and stuff, but it's not like I'm gonna be able to read reviews on every hotel or like watch reviews on every hotel, right? I was going to have to read. So unfortunately for that particular goal, I couldn't learn in the best way possible. But if you're learning like a skill, learn in the best way for you. We talk about reading a lot on my channel and within our community, but if reading is not how you like to consume information, don't do it. Learn in other ways. Maximize the amount of time you're spending on it by doing it in the best way for you. Also, maximize the time by learning from the best resources. And so whether that's asking for referrals from people for where you're gonna get that information, getting it from somebody who is a professional, and sometimes it might even mean paying a professional for their information or their time to ultimately save you time in the long run. I ended up doing this with our wedding. I haven't really talked about it in too many places, but I ultimately ended up hiring a wedding coach. That was her title. I don't know if coach is the right phrase, but I was still planning my wedding, but what she was doing was we had a monthly call and we would talk about all the things that I had done for the wedding in the last month. And she would tell me explicitly, these are the things you need to do in this month, depending on where we were at in the process. And it just kept me from having to go down rabbit holes, right? Now, did I still have to do research and stuff within that? Yeah, like she was like, okay, now it's time to do the hotel blocks and we got to do the hotel blocks. I don't know why that example popped up to my head because my husband did that task. But the point is that I ultimately hired a professional to help me take out the research planning of like what step I was doing when, and it saved me a lot of time. So if that's something that you feel like you struggle with and you have a really big goal, it might be beneficial to hire somebody to help you to stay on track. And the last thing I want to talk about is to trust your instinct. A lot of times when we get stuck in this learning planning, it is because we feel like we need all the information to make a decision to move forward. And I get it. I love a good pro-con list. I think about all my Gilmore Girls fans, like the big pro-con list that Rory made when she was trying to pick a college. Like I 100% get it. But most of the time, you are either gonna end up making the same decision or you're gonna make the decision that's best for you. I once heard, and I wish I could remember where I heard this, it was either in a book or a podcast or something, where they talked about your instinct, your gut, is just your brain making a really quick decision based on everything you already know. It is your subconscious making that decision really quickly. And when I heard that, I finally was like, oh, so it's not like I'm just trusting my instinct or my gut, I'm trusting my brain. And that made it a lot easier for me to trust my instincts when it came to planning and making decisions for my goals. You know what's best for you ultimately, so do a little bit of research, do a little bit of planning, and then start taking action. All right, that is it. Those are my 5 thoughts and ideas, tips for you on breaking through that learning planning phase and moving on to your next goal. If you feel like you're stuck there on a specific goal, I would love for you to comment down below with what that goal is. And I would love to be able to help you figure out maybe what is just the next step and the action that you can take to get started on that goal. Because I will say that again and again, the best way to learn is by taking action, and taking action is gonna create that momentum for you as well. And maybe the learning research phase that you're in is that you don't actually know what your goals are. If so, I just released a new freebie that will be very beneficial for you. That is 5 ways to help you figure out what your goals are. So check out that freebie. It's a free video and a free download. I'll leave it linked down below if step 1 is just figuring out what your goals are. All right, that is gonna be it for this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, please click that subscribe button. I upload new videos every week focused on helping you achieve your goals. Thank you so much for watching. To break through that you will never know anything. Come on, battery, don't die.